Well, today is October the 1st, 2009, and I am at Carrington Place with my wonderful mother and her new short haircut from Reggie today. But this morning, Mom was shocked to open the Belleville newspaper and find that her second cousin, Doris Mae Schaefer, that the obituary was in the newspaper. And Mom, I always find it very confusing, although interesting, because you've shared so many stories over the years about all of your relatives, but for some reason, they always kind of sound like sitcom characters, and I'm never quite able to remember like who's on what side of the family. And you were starting to tell me this morning on my drive to work that Doris Mae, who I definitely heard you talk about so often over the years, that she was on Grandpa Blim's side of the family.
Correct.
If you could just kind of briefly talk about who her parents were and some of your favorite memories of her, I think it would be interesting.
I'll do it now.
Mm-hmm.
She, Doris Mae, well, who is now just Doris, but back then she was Doris Mae. She was so nice and so very talented on the piano. And then her brother Lynn always played the violin, and they used to always have duets.
Was it just the two of them?
With just the two of them, but then my brothers Merle and Paul would also join in and play their banjos. So it was to me it was always just delightful to hear all that music.
And was her mother Ma Blim? Was Doris?
Ma Blim was a mother to my dad and to and to why can't I think of her name?
Doris?
No, my well, she was also my godmother.
Okay, so Ma Blim was not Doris's mother.
No, she was the mother of my dad and what was her name? She was my godmother. Her and her husband. His name was he was really strict, and he wasn't real congenial. But my
Dad left Paul Leffler.
No, it was the guy that.
See, I can't keep any of these people straight.
What it was Ma Blim. She kept her name. Ma Blim married Dad Leffler, but they used the separate names.
But that was not her first husband.
Oh, it was her fifth.
And she was never convicted of poisoning anyone?
No, but her first husband, I had Dad drive and find his grave at the cemetery. It was a real old grave, and we took pictures of it.
In the Belleville area?
Oh, no, it was down in...
Evansville or
Evansville.
Somewhere? Did you exhume the body to see if she had...
No, but I wanted to see it. I mean, I wanted to see... And there was a big plaque about him on there, about he was a kind... That was Ma Blim's first husband. He was a kind and devoted father and husband.
And was that Grandpa's father? The first one?
Yeah,
the first husband?
I guess it would have been.
Okay.
Yes.
So poor Grandpa Blim had like all these stepfathers?
Grandpa Blim. Oh, that's my dad, you mean.
Right.
Yeah, well, in fact, then she married somebody younger.
So he had to have all these stepfathers. If she married all these other people.
But this all happened when they were all real young, and I could tell when I used to talk to him, he didn't even remember half of it about these other people.
It's probably just as well.
And then she had another child. She had these daughters and these sons. The sons were Daddy and Clem.
Okay.
But then this Uncle Harold was born. And then they had Aunt Esther and Aunt Joe.
Oh, I gotcha.
And Aunt Joe. And Aunt Joe and Uncle, her husband, were my godparents. And they were wonderful to me. I think she was the one that brought me my first poetry book.
Oh, well, we have her to thank.
But she was very, very nice. But thinking about Doris Mae, I can still picture her ever since I found out about her dying, which I cannot believe. We still exchange Christmas cards. She had the most beautiful handwriting.
You're going to need extra postage now.
Why? Huh?
That was a joke.
Oh.
I'm going to... Okay, this is part 2 of the Grandpa Blim side of the family discussion regarding... that really got instigated because of the death of which you were informed this morning of your cousin Doris May. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you were just talking about what are some like fond memories of you and Doris?
Well, it wasn't just me. Doris had this wonderful personality, and she was very friendly and outgoing. I'll have to show you some pictures. I think we've got pictures of her with Aude, and she'd have her arms around us. And she was just always one of these people. I like being with her. And that's when we started writing. I started sending her Christmas cards. So then she would send me Christmas cards back and write something. But I just found out that Jenny and Audrey no longer ever hear from her. And I thought that, because they were the ones that were kind of buddies.
Right.
So I don't know what happens. But I continued because she was one of these people that was just nice to know.
Well, this morning you were also telling me that you were the only one that was really had a good relationship with Dad Leffler.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? And were people just...
well, she had been married.
They were just resentful because he was husband number 5?
I think that a lot of them didn't like him for that reason, but he gave her a lot, almost all of his money.
Wow.
But I used to go down there on vacations. Vacations. You know, they lived not... Well, anyway, I used to go down there, and I used to get a kick out of him because back in those days... Ma Blim said, now, when Uncle Harold comes home, he'll want to take a hot bath in this tub. So we had to drag, she said, help me drag out these large buckets of water, and it sat in the sun all day.
Oh, wow.
So when Uncle Harold came home, we had to pour all that into the bathtub.
Okay.
Anyway, it was just one of those things that I thought was really kind of strange. But I liked Dad Leffler so much. He always called me Smiley. That was my nickname. Mm-hmm. And we'd go out in the garden and pull weeds together. And I don't know what it was.
Well, now we know how you got your love of poetry and your love of pulling weeds.
Yeah.
Both from Grandpa Blim's side of the family.
But he was a nice guy, but a lot of people didn't like him. And when we'd go down there to have these big dinners at Ma Blim's house, he'd always say, who will lunch with Dad? That's what we call him, Dad Leffler. And I'd always say, I will. And he'd say, well, come out in the kitchen. And he always fixed me the homemade bread that what's her name had made.
Well, that's sure nice.
And then we'd always eat it with grape jelly.
Oh, that is really cool.
I can remember, I can taste it right now. But it's terrible, you know. I don't take flowers out to their graves because,
oh my gosh.
Well, they don't have anything to put them in. And all they do is run over them then. And I said to Dick just the other day, you know, I said, I still almost wish I had done more for them when they were...
Mother, you couldn't have done much more for anybody.
No, they were just so nice. But anyway...
okay, well, that was very interesting.
But they're not buried side by side.
Well, that's because are all of her husbands in a row?
One's here and then one's... Well, most of them were buried in Evansville. Her husbands.
I see.
But I don't know. I liked him a lot, and I don't think people gave him very much credit. But I liked him. I always like people who, you know, why is it that people like get it in for somebody? You know, like maybe, oh, they don't know if they're deserving of this or that, and I just always liked him. Oh, he and his wife, why can't I think of her name? Daddy's mother, for gosh sakes. Anyway, they always came to the picnic parades.
Oh, that's neat.
And they'd run out, and they always gave us some pennies in our hand. So I used to think, which was hard to hold as you marched.
Well, sure.
But I thought it was sweet that they always would stand there and wave, and then they'd...
Before I conclude this portion, is there anything else that you'd like to say about your memory of Doris or anything?
She was one of these people that was always very happy and smiling, and she would be complimentary about things. And I always liked when we went to Maul Bloom and Dad Leffler's house for these family gatherings, because Doris May always sat and played the piano, and then her brother would play the violin, and my brothers would play what was that they played? The banjos.
Mm-hmm.
And she just was always a lot of fun. She was just fun to be around.
Oh, that's neat.
But she married somebody that always seemed, after she got married, I thought she became more subdued.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband was real silly, real funny. I mean, I'll see him Saturday. You know,
When you go to the visitation.
we're going to go to